The other day when I was talking about Tom Brady and Bill Belichick essentially pushing Tom Brady out of New England, I mentioned an old Bill Walsh quote. And I'm paraphrasing it a bit here, but Bill Walsh basically said that it is better to let your franchise quarterback go a year early than to wait and let him walk a year too late. And I want to give Madeline Hudak, I hope I'm saying her name right. I want to give her credit for the idea of this video because she wrote an excellent three-part series on SB Nation on NFL teams that kept quarterbacks around too long. And she also highlighted teams that let their franchise quarterbacks go while they were still playing at a high level. If you haven't seen it, I encourage you to go check it out. She did a really good job on it. Now, moving on from a legendary franchise quarterbacks, one of the most difficult decisions a franchise or a head coach can make. The fan base is loyal to them. Depending on the situation, it can be a really unpopular decision. I mean, take what happened with Brett Favre in Green Bay, for example. The Packers sat Aaron Rodgers behind Brett Favre for 3 years. It created a divide in that locker room. Veteran players backed Brett Favre. Younger players were more in favor of Aaron Rodgers. 2007, which ended up being Brett Favre's last year in Green Bay, he led them to the NFC Championship game. He was shipped to the Jets the following offseason. Packers went 6-10 in Aaron Rodgers' first year in Green Bay. Now, obviously, long term, this worked out for the Packers. But at the time, in that 2008 offseason, not all Packers fans, or Packers players for that matter, were happy with their decision to let Brett Favre walk. You've got other situations in the history of the NFL where teams have let their quarterbacks go early, and it ended up working out for them. The 49ers, they let Joe Montana go to Kansas City, started Steve Young in his place. A decision that was highly controversial and unpopular at the time. I mean, Steve Young had just failed miserably in Tampa back in the 80s. But long term, it worked out for the 49ers. Another example, the Colts. They moved on from Peyton Manning in favor of Andrew Luck. Now, you can debate both sides of this issue, whether or not this worked out in the favor of the Colts. Peyton Manning went on to Denver, won another Super Bowl. Andrew Luck ends up retiring early. Now, even though it didn't necessarily work out, I feel like the Colts made the right decision. Then you have the other side of this coin. Teams that hold on to their quarterbacks too long. The Denver Broncos held on to John Elway well past his prime. Had no successor in place for when he retired. Now, they won back-to-back Super Bowls, but Mike Shanahan had to go beg John Elway to come back and win that second Super Bowl. And after that, Denver didn't have another franchise quarterback for damn near 15 years. A guy named Peyton Manning, which was another short-term plan for the Broncos. There are other examples. You got Jim Kelly and the Buffalo Bills. That's another good one from the early to mid-90s. But the reason I bring all of this up is my New Orleans Saints are faced with this predicament right now. Sean Payton is in a situation where he feels like he has his quarterback of the future on the sideline, waiting in the wings, so to speak. He feels like he has a guy that can lead this team for the next 5, 7, maybe even 10 years. But the guy that got into the dance is not ready to hang it up just yet. Let's be honest. Without Drew Brees, there would be no Sean Payton. Now, you could argue that maybe Sean Payton would have been successful somewhere else. You can debate that back and forth all day. But the reason that Sean Payton and Drew Brees have been so successful together is because they've got great chemistry. They're best friends on and off the field. They know what the other is thinking before they themselves do. They know each other that well. But Drew Brees is on the back nine of his career. 41 years old, going to be 42 in January. Some are saying that this is going to be his final season in the NFL. I'm not so sure that's the case. He desperately wants to win another Super Bowl. And the Saints are primed to contend the next couple of years as long as they have a good quarterback. The nucleus of this team in New Orleans is under contract the next few years. Cam Jordan, Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara, Demario Davis. The offensive line is intact. Sean Payton, he's locked into New Orleans for a while. Not only does Drew Brees want to finish his career in New Orleans, he knows that the Saints are his best chance at getting another Super Bowl ring. I mean, think about it. All the other Super Bowl contenders, they already have quarterbacks in place. Some of them long term, most of them long term. The question right now is Drew Brees capable of leading the Saints to a Super Bowl? Now, that would be blasphemous to even ask in New Orleans 2-3 years ago. But with what we've seen at times this year, it's a legitimate question that some Saints fans are asking themselves. Some Saints fans have even been calling for Jameis Winston to play in place of Drew Brees. Me personally, I'm willing to give Drew Brees the benefit of the doubt. I know he struggled the first 2 weeks of the season, but the last 4 weeks, I think that he has played at a high level, especially the last 3 weeks. It seems like he hit his stride in Detroit week 4, and he has gotten progressively better ever since. If New Orleans does win the Super Bowl this year, that game in Detroit will be looked at as the turning point of the season. Kind of like that Dolphins game back in 2009 was the turning point of the 2009 Saints. They came into Detroit 1-2, losers of 2 straight. Drew Brees being questioned locally and nationally as to whether or not he's lost it. Mainly, people, myself included, were questioning his ability or his lack thereof to throw the deep ball. The Saints go down 21-0 early in the first quarter. Drew Brees didn't have a choice at that point. He had to open up the offense and start throwing the ball downfield. And it gave him the confidence that he needed. And ever since, Drew Brees has been the assassin in the pocket that we've known him to be his entire career. That win against Carolina this past Sunday was vintage Drew Brees. It was the best I think he's played all season. Both Michael Thomas, Emmanuel Sanders are out. Brees is throwing to young receivers. Some of them are practice squad players. He still completes 81% of his passes, 287 yards, 2 touchdowns. So he's played at a high level the past 3 or 4 weeks. And I get the feeling at times that he's trying to prove to Sean Payton that he still has what it takes to lead the Saints to a Super Bowl. Let me tell you why I say that. Sean Payton is mesmerized by Taysom Hill. He loves Taysom Hill. When Taysom Hill lost the game against Green Bay for the Saints, what was that, a couple of weeks ago, that fumble in the fourth quarter, Sean Payton was still praising him. He has never said anything critical of Taysom Hill publicly. But I've noticed something different with the way that he is using Hill this season. Taysom Hill's not being used on special teams anymore. He's not lining up at tight end to receive or block. He's been used some here and there as a receiver, but not like he was the past 2 years. He is no longer the Swiss Army knife. This season, Sean Payton has used Taysom Hill almost exclusively at quarterback. Instead of most of these plays being RPOs, some still are run-pass options, but for the most part, many times Sean Payton is putting Taysom Hill in the game and calling passing plays. And Payton is pulling Drew Brees and putting Taysom Hill in at critical times. 3rd down, late in the game against the Chargers in the 4th quarter, for example. Now, why do you think that is? Why do you think Sean Payton is doing this with Taysom Hill this year, doing it differently? It's clear to me. He is getting him ready for next season. I think we're going to see this more and more as the season goes on. Sean Payton's taking heat for it, but he doesn't care. I believe we're going to see him put Taysom Hill into games in critical situations to get him experience. Sean Payton is already looking towards the future. Whether or not Drew Brees retires after this season, I don't know. It's anyone's guess. But I do feel like this is his final season in New Orleans, whether he likes it or not. It is abundantly clear that Sean Payton sees Taysom Hill as the future quarterback of the Saints. He doesn't want to go the route of the late 90s Denver Broncos or the early to mid 90s Buffalo Bills. Teams that had a great run, then went straight to the bottom of the NFL for the next 10, 15, 20 years. Sean Payton wants to emulate the Green Bay Packers. Legendary quarterback ages. The next potential legend steps right in and leads them to another Super Bowl. I think Sean Payton wanted to move on from Drew Brees after last season. For the second year in a row, he completely fell apart late in the season and into the playoffs. Now, what was Sean Payton supposed to say to Drew Brees if he wanted to come back? Was he supposed to tell him no? You can't do that. Now, this is just my opinion. I believe they came to an agreement that 2020 would be it for Brees, his final season, and that Sean Payton, from that point on, would move forward with Taysom Hill. Just look at the contract that they signed Taysom Hill to over the offseason. He will hit the Saints cap for $16 million in 2021. Now, you think they signed him to that contract and that type of cap hit to utilize him as a Swiss Army knife or a backup quarterback? No. He's going to be the starter in 2021. Think about it. The Saints haven't drafted a quarterback since Taysom Hill. They just let Teddy Bridgewater walk in free agency. Jameis Winston is the third quarterback on the depth chart. If he decides to stay in New Orleans or if they decide to keep him, he's going to be the backup to Taysom Hill. All signs point to Taysom Hill being the successor to Drew Brees starting in 2021. So all the fans in New Orleans who get pissed off when Sean Payton pulls a red-hot Drew Brees for Taysom Hill in a critical late-game situation, and even for Drew Brees, who I think is visibly upset at times when Sean Payton decides to pull him. All I can tell you is to get used to it, because he's not going to stop. If anything, I think we could see it happen more frequently. Sean Payton compares Taysom Hill to Steve Young all the time, who I mentioned earlier. Fans in San Francisco were pissed when the Niners moved on from Joe Montana for Steve Young. If Sean Payton is right, and Taysom Hill is the next Steve Young, then the Saints are going to be set up for success for years to come, as soon as the Drew Brees era ends. But if Sean Payton's wrong, the Saints are screwed. They've got no backup plan. They have put themselves into a precarious situation with the salary cap, especially with Drew Brees' contract. They'll be paying Drew Brees for the next 2 or 3 years after he's gone from New Orleans. At this point, though, as far as the Saints' future is concerned, Taysom Hill is the only option in the mind of Sean Payton. All right, that's all for today. Hit that like and subscribe button. Click the notification bell to receive all notifications from the channel. Leave me a comment in the section below. Will this be the final season in New Orleans for Drew Brees? Is Taysom Hill going to be his successor, the guy that carries the torch in New Orleans after Brees is gone? Let me know your thoughts. You can follow me on Twitter at KC_BTL84. If you have any questions, a topic you'd like me to discuss, you can email me at BTLKC84@gmail.com. I'll see you guys next time.